Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Willie, and this is the encouraging word for today. One of the keys in life is to have the proper perspective on everything. To have the proper perspective. And the proper perspective is to have God's perspective, to have the mind of Christ, to see things the way God sees them. Why is that so? Because the way God sees things is the way things are. And when we don't have God's perspective, listen, when we don't have God's perspective, we have our own perspective and we don't understand things, and we have questions, we have struggles because we're not in line with God's perspective. And one of the functions of the Bible is to give us wisdom. And the core aspect of wisdom is to see things from God's perspective. And when we see things from God's perspective, not our perspective or another person's perspective, or as we would say, a worldly perspective, then our lives align with God's perspective. And everything makes sense from God's perspective. It's when we don't have God's perspective is that things don't make sense. You see, God has an eternal perspective. We, since we live in time, God doesn't live in time, we live in time, we have a temporal or a time restrained perspective. I see what's happening today. I see what happened yesterday. But God sees the whole picture. And when I can get God's perspective, then what he says in his word makes 100% sense to me. Let me give you an example from Psalm 92. Actually, it starts, it is a good thing to praise the Lord. Okay, but from my perspective, everything's going, quote unquote, wrong in my life. Why would I praise the Lord? Because I'm looking at it from my perspective. But from God's perspective, I can praise the Lord. But I want to focus on verse 6 and 7 of Psalm 92. Listen to these verses. Senseless people do not know. Fools do not understand. Right. Now, I don't want to be a senseless person. And I'm sure if you're watching this and not some YouTube video about cats, and I'm not against cats at all. I watch those things, or animals. But because you're watching this, you're seeking something. You don't want to be a senseless person. So senseless people do not know. Fools do not understand. I don't want to be a fool. You don't want to be a fool. A fool is someone who doesn't understand. Doesn't understand what? God's perspective. And when we don't understand God's perspective, we are fools. It's like we're living in a world of our own imagination, and we're not living in the world as it is from God's perspective, because his perspective is reality. Senseless people do not know, fools do not understand, and here it is, that though the wicked spring up like grass, and all evildoers flourish, they will be destroyed forever. They will be destroyed forever. So when I look at the world and I see wickedness, I see evil, and it seems from my perspective, I mean, there are so many billionaires, so many countries that the rulers are horrible, immoral people, yet they live in mansions. And so I could get confused and say, God, I don't understand. Why are the wicked prospering? Why are those who do wrong? Why do they seem to be doing better than your people? Why are we suffering? Why are they doing? So that's looking at things from my perspective. My perspective is limited to time. What's happening in time? What's happening now in this time, right now? What's happening today? But a fool doesn't understand this, that although they spring up though they're flourishing like grass, and they flourish, it says, they will be destroyed forever. You can look at the grass, green, flourishing in the summer, beautiful. But we all know reality. In September, October, wherever you live, whatever time of year that is, the grass will fade. It'll be gone. And God is saying to you and me today, take His perspective. Evil may flourish for a time, but God is forever. And that time for the flourishing of evil or immorality is going to be gone. From God's perspective, it's just a blip in eternity. So when we take God's perspective, we can have peace. We see these things and we know the wicked will be destroyed forever. And so it changes my perspective. I don't worry about it. I understand God's perspective, and I pray for the wicked that they will turn to God before that day when they're destroyed forever comes. So God bless you. Take God's perspective, and I will see you on Monday.